Configure VMware clusters and resource pools. All right, now we're on to the really exciting part. We've got the hardware more or less configured at this point. We've got some VMs up and running. We've created a vApp. We've installed VMware tools. We know how to vMotion at this point, but you know, the real exciting part about running a vSphere environment is not just the vMotion piece. It's all the other stuff that sort of wraps around vMotion, at least in my mind, that makes it automated. If I had to sit and go and migrate each VM one at a time based off of my own internal gut feeling, well, I'm probably not going to do as good of a job as a mathematical model that has certain monitors that looks and sees, okay, well, you need this much CPU today and that much memory today, and I need to rebalance based off of that. That's what the job of a cluster is. If you're familiar with the terms HA and DRS, or high availability and distributed resource scheduling, these are the two functionalities that a VMware cluster is predominantly known for. Once you have a cluster in place, then you can create some resource pools that provide hard boundaries around the resources that you can assign to various people. We're going to talk about all of that in this nugget. You will leave this nugget having an understanding of the role of VMware clusters and also the resources that are required for HA. I'm going to tell you what the implementation tasks are, but I want you also to understand some of the more design, some of the more strategic tasks as well, because I see it happen all the time where people turn on HA and they don't do it smartly, and so consequently they end up creating problems for themselves. And I don't want you to create a problem by turning on HA and TRS. You'll also understand what EVC is, or Advanced vMotion Compatibility, which becomes particularly important as your size of your cluster grows. You essentially want to create these islands of vMotion capabilities so that you don't have a cluster that thinks all of your hosts can vMotion with each other when in fact they can't. In this nugget, we will spend time creating and completing the initial configuration of building a cluster, a very interesting thing to do. We'll do the same thing with the resource pool. We'll take a look at those same shares, reservations, and limits. The resource pool manifestation of these things flows right in from what you learned in the individual virtual machine configurations. We'll take a look at some cluster behaviors, and then we'll also take a look at storage DRS. So I think you're going to find this particular nugget to be really exciting because it's a lot of the really interesting pieces about really why you would create a vSphere environment in the first place. And before we get there, I want to bring up a series of pictures because I find that the pictures really help people understand what this whole cluster thing is. Right? And a cluster in VMware speak is a little bit different than a cluster in Microsoft speak. It's not necessarily a shared nothing cluster so much. It performs different functions too. A cluster in VMware speak is designed to do two things. It's designed to do HA, or high availability, and DRS, or load balancing. The first picture here shows you, all right, I have 3 servers. One of which has failed, 2 are healthy. All of these 3 servers have their virtual machines that are sitting on shared storage. They're all talking to this common network here. And so one day, poof, one of the servers just fails. Okay, motherboard dies. Somebody pulls a power cable out. You drop your coffee on the server. And so consequently that server fails. Now when it fails, there are a bunch of virtual machines, the brains of which are up here and the bodies of which are sitting down here in shared storage. When that server fails, what happens? Well, I have an HA cluster that is configured. The virtual machines are going to die. Right? They are going to power off because there is nothing preventing them when that server goes down. You yank the power cable out, right, with this configuration, there's nothing in place to protect that. So these virtual machines power off. But remember, their bodies are still sitting over here in shared storage. So they're going to have to power back on in order to continue operating. And powering on, powering on a virtual machine doesn't take that long. So they power back on, but the HA cluster says, oh, wait a minute, this server's failed. Go ahead and power these machines on the surviving cluster hosts. So this is what we think of when we're really considering what HA is. HA is, I want to protect myself from a failure of a piece of hardware, and then move all the VMs onto surviving cluster members. Now this is somewhat different than in the